Hello, welcome to Design Time. I'm Jackie Lacey. Today we wanted to spend a little time talking about curly willow armatures. Armatures are one of those things that we love to use, especially in today's updated and modern looking designs, and it really gives your structure or your composition a structure to begin with, somewhere to start. A lot of times, other than curly willow, you could use Midolino, you can use branches that you can find out in nature. There's a lot of different forms of armatures that can be created, but you want to make sure whatever you're going to use, especially if you're looking for that natural effect, that you make sure that it's clean, that if it's something that's brought in from outdoors, that there are no insects that might be transferred over to the composition, therefore passed on to anything else that it would be coupled with. And you want to make sure that it transitions well, that it's going to hold up. Curly willow is one of those natural products that we love to use in the industry. It gives everything that free form, that flow. A lot of your clients will ask for those sticks that they want added in because it really can give that beautiful curve to a design, especially if you're doing something very vertical. Curly willow armature is a great place to start when you're first starting to put together some of those hand-tied bouquets, because again, it will give you a base that starts to accept the product as you start to weave it in. What we're going to talk about also is using curly willow as a great grid in like a bubble bowl, a square, a rectangle, any of those things that you want to be able to just put something in the container, make sure that it stays in place when you first insert the stem. So using curly willow for a grid is a little bit easier, especially if you've got a nice round container, square container. Find a piece that may not have quite as many branches. I like to start by rolling it, sort of giving it something to hold on to, and then you can insert it into the container. Again, it gives you that solid base to start to insert your stems, and it holds them in place as you start to build your final composition. If you're looking to create an armature, something like this, that would be a good base for a bouquet, or maybe a structure if you want to do an elongated design. One of the things that I recommend that you do is get all your products ready and prepped together, placed, and the time will go a lot faster. I love to use bind wire, but I like to cut it down into smaller pieces. That way it can naturally be left exposed as you start to build your armature. I find that just by wrapping it around my fingers, like so, then it makes it very easy to cut everything about the same length. I'm going to just snip at the bottom and at the top where I wound it around, and then I've got very usable smaller pieces that are ready at my side as I start to put together the armature. Once you've got those things done, then you want to select some of those pieces of curly willow that will allow you to either make circular or oblong pieces when you start to build your armature. I like to bind them together first, and for that, if it's something that's going to be covered with ribbon, such as a bouquet would be, then it's okay to use your secure wire, or your secure tape, I mean, and you're just going to bind them together so that they will securely be held in place. If you're not going to cover these, let's say that you're just going to rest this in a clear glass container such as this, and you don't want them to be as exposed, then maybe for that you want to go back to using your bind wire to bind them together, because that's not going to be seen. Keep in mind that bind wire does have a metal wire inside, and it's coated with paper. If this goes down and is submerged in water, it might rust and discolor the water. So you may think of some of those other products that will bind your curly willow together, but not rust or not discolor the water in any way. Once you've got it bound together, then start to decide on your shape. For this one, we're going to elongate it a little bit. So I'm going to take some of my curly willow out in each direction, and I'm not quite snapping it. I'm just bending it so that it gives me somewhere to start with the design. And it will fight like this with you as well, as you can see. Now that I've sort of have that horizontal position, which is what I was looking for, I might want to bind what I already have together. Think of the length that you want to do that. I'm going to insert some of this bind wire. Just give it a quick twist to sort of hold that together. Again, you don't want to snap it, you want to just bend it so that it will stay in place. Remember, you control the product. Once you get it bent back and forth and sort of locked in place, then you're going to take some other pieces and you can sort of weave back and forth, creating that beautiful armature in whatever width you want to, whatever shape you want to, however you might be using it. Now that I've got it bound together and I've got my horizontal positioning, I can start to weave the curly willow into itself. This will help keep your structure together, and it will also give you insertions, places that will hold those stems, just like we did with the grid, as we start to build whatever design we're going to use in our armature. And you're just sort of wrapping it back and forth lightly. It doesn't have to be overly crazy. Once I've got it like this, if I really want to hold that securely in place, I can take some of those horizontal pieces that I had laid out prior to and start to work those in to this framework so that it will help hold all of this together nicely. Not being too difficult, I'm not challenging it too much. I just started with one frame that I've now added a couple of other pieces into. I can wrap them around, cover up anything that I don't want to be left exposed. Again, just using your bind wire to make sure that you securely take those stress points and bind them together so that they can't come apart on you. That can either be cut off later on, it can also be extended and pulled out, made for a little additional room, looking for whatever shape you might have. If you need some extra strength in there, another little piece of bind wire, and it's going to hold it right in place. As you start to form that armature, think about what products you might want to put in there. What am I going to use to start to create a beautiful composition? Some flowers, also some foliage. What kind of foliage will you put in there together? As we can see, we've got a nice horizontal armature started. I can continue to add, but I think you get the idea of how it's put together. You make it as large or as dense as you want to. If you want to continue to build it out so that as you put it into your container, you have something to hold it in place and to start to work your floral product and your foliage in. This can evolve as you start to put those flowers in, because you do want to make sure that everything is secure, nothing is going to snap out or to come apart once you've set it in place. So again, you start in the center, build out a little bit of framework, put in some of those horizontal pieces, bind it together, and then start to build your design. If you're building a piece like this, as you get it together, you will also start with your handle. You're going to create a bind position where that can be bound together. If it's going to be covered with something opaque, you can use the secure tape. If it's going to be seen, then you might want to use a product that can be left exposed. bind it together, and then as you start to work around the bouquet, simply bend those pieces down in place until you've formed your star. Once you've created your star positioning and your pieces are all jetting out, then start to work those one into the other. And I will just wrap them around like this and continue going around the design until I've formed that circle. Once the circle is complete, then move some of those outer pieces across each other and down, under, and back up and over, and you're just sort of weaving the curly willow into itself. As you do this, you will see how it gets stronger and stronger. Then bind at certain points so that you clearly have a circle and the pieces are nice and secure. Once you've got them secure, almost anything can be inserted down in there. You're going to bind it around the handle of the stem and then securely bind all that together. Hope this gives you a little better understanding of how to use curly willow, either as a grid, as an armature for a bouquet, or as an extended horizontal armature for a finished composition. Thanks for joining us today for Design Time, and join us again next time. If you enjoyed that video and you'd like to see more, click the subscribe button.